All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this work session to order on the Parks Foundation. Let's do introductions starting on this side.
Mike Zalata.
Steve Peterson.
Austin Davidson.
Felix Rivera.
John Wellington.
Forrest Dunbar.
Tiziana LeGrand.
Christopher Constant.
Josh Duran.
Beth Nordland. Joelle Hall.
Cameron Perez-Rodillo.
All right, I will go ahead and turn it over to Beth.
I'm going to give it to Joelle, who's our
Great.
board chair.
All right.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I think probably everybody can hear without this, but my name is Joelle Hall. I am the chair of the Anchorage Park Foundation. Thank you so much for giving us a couple minutes to talk today about Parks and Trails and our amazing relationship with the Anchorage Parks and Rec Department. I want to acknowledge Diana Rhodes, who's in the audience, who's also on the staff. You all know Beth, and you all know Josh. So this is a great team, a great partnership, a public-private partnership between the municipality of Anchorage and the Parks and Rec Department and the Anchorage Park Department. Park Foundation. We have a few handouts for you. If I can turn your attention to the larger one, on the side with all the purple lines, this is the side of the document that's the history. I think a lot of you are fairly familiar with the work that we do, but we wanted to give you a large-scale presentation of the kind of work that we've done historically. The Community Park Foundation has been around for about 15 years. And we've done all kinds of things in the community, and most notably and most recently, we've been working really hard in collaboration with the Rasmussen Foundation to change over every park we work in, every playground we work in, will become an inclusive playground. And that is so that children of all abilities can play in our town. I'm referencing this because it also is it's important for the next phase of our life and what we want to do in the next 15 years of our life. But I just want to call out the middle box in the very middle of the document, which is an example of the kinds of revenue that the Anchorage Park Foundation brings to the table in the municipality of Anchorage. We, of course, bring private dollars, volunteer time, we raise grant money. We have successfully in the past been able to leverage the capital budget for significant investment into the city of Anchorage. And then federal dollars as well. All told, this is around $40 million, I think, is the number
That came into the Anchorage.
that comes into the Anchorage Park Foundation that we've been able to put back out onto the street. And once again, the only municipal dollars involved in that would be park bonds that we were part of the team that helps pass park bonds. I think we're
40 came into us. 40 came in for the park bonds. So that's more than 80.
It's
more
80,
than 80
yeah.
million.
It's 40 in private dollars, 40 in park bonds. So it's an $80 million operation that we've been able to have for the last 15 years, running money through this organization in partnership with the Parks and Rec Department and add value to Parks and Rec. So this works because we are able to be the match for lots of different types of dollars. And this notion of match is important for where we would like to kind of work and build out our portfolio, as we will, for the with the municipality of Anchorage as we go forward. So you can see all of the inclusive play, but if you notice on the right-hand box in the bottom, we're gonna install 6 inclusive playgrounds this summer. So we're not done with inclusive play, not by a long shot. We're going to keep going. Oh, I also should acknowledge that Assemblymember Dunbar is also on our board. So Forrest serves on our board, as well as we still have a former Assemblymember, Ernie Hall, serving on our board as well. So it's really important for us that we have a strong connection with the Assembly because we are working hand in glove in municipal assets all the time. We had a strategic planning session about 8 months ago. And the board got together and we thought about, in 15 years, we've been able to recreate and actually we're like the world leader in inclusive play. There isn't a community in the world that has as many inclusive playgrounds as Anchorage, Alaska. So if we can do that, in 15 years, what can we do in the next 15 years? And the board sat down and we said, what we really want to do is connect this town. The Anchorage Park Foundation builds communities through parks and trails. That's when we think about what we do, we think about how do we build neighborhoods, how do we build community, how do we use parks and trails as the methodology and the modality to bring people together. Well, how are we going to do that more and in a more aggressive fashion over the next 15 years? And so out of that was born this concept of Connect to Anchorage. And when we say connect, it's of course it's 15 figurative and literal. We mean figuratively through community, and we mean literally by physically connecting our communities to our parks and trails. This is about hard connections between a neighborhood and a school, a neighborhood and a trail, the school and the trail, and forensically looking at all of the places in our community where these connections are missing and trying to meet the needs of the neighbors by doing them. We do this in conjunction with Parks and Rec, but in order for us to do this next level of work where we really want to physically connect, it's going to mean working with other aspects of municipal government. It means being the private public partner to the planning department and to the health department. Because we think there's a role for us in being the private partner to the health department getting grants where they need private or match dollars, and working with planning and zoning on non-motorized types of connections. So a trail or a bike trail. And how do we connect Anchorage, and how do we make this one of the most vibrant and easy cities to access in a non-motorized way? For our really long, we have great trails, we need to make them better. Out of this came, this box right here is the moose. You might have seen pictures of the moose. It just kind of jumped out to people that when you laid out the whole trail system, it kind of looked like a moose. So the Connect program is all about connecting the communities that you represent to the moose and to other infrastructure, and then working towards the future and building more pathways between our communities that are non-motorized pathways in conjunction with motorized, I'm not saying we're going to close down the streets. I'm just saying we need to have a northwest, east, southwest, north, south, east, west arterial so that people can move in a non-motorized way through our town. So we're excited about this new vision that we have. We're excited about our potential to be a private partner for other departments of the municipality of Anchorage. And we've spoken to the leaders of those departments. We've kind of presented our concept of how we think we can be helpful. We're here talking to you about it today because sometimes you guys hear about opportunities, about grants that are out there in the world, that those grants the municipality can't apply for because they don't have a private dollar match. They don't have these other types of funding that they need. We want you to think about the Anchorage Park Foundation as being able to potentially expand our portfolio and be more useful to other aspects of the municipality of Anchorage in other ways in this same public-private partnership. We're going to keep going. We have lots to do. We've done lots of things. You can see our 2020 goals here. We want to reach out to all of the community councils in your communities and identify their top 3 connectivity challenges or opportunities. I hope this is the moment where you realize that we would like to be partnering with you when you're working with your neighbors to connect. Sometimes those connection dilemmas are super sticky. It's a land ownership issue. Maybe no one owns the land. Maybe 4 people own the land. Maybe it's the railway. Maybe it's the federal government. Maybe it's the municipality. Maybe it's a school. We'd like to work with all of you to help you when your communities identify these connections. We would like to be the people that you call or that you send the neighbors to so that we can help facilitate this. We think this is a need. We think this is an opportunity to work with you and with communities to help these kind of sticky. There is nobody in this. It is nobody's job in city government to sit down and figure out how to connect a school to a trail. That's no one's job. We want to do that. We want to work with you to do that and to work through all of these sticky land ownership issues to get to the solution that your constituents want and that our neighbors want. We would like to brand Connect Anchorage, specifically when it comes to the bonds. Connectivity relates to all aspects of the bonds that you put forth to the voters. It's parks, it's trails, it's roads, it's drainage. All of those things will have a connection component. And what we'd like to do is work with you and come up with a branding mechanism so that when we put together a bond proposition, and something like Elderberry Park's a great example. There's a park, there's lots and lots of road improvements going on at Elderberry Park, and there's clearly going to be some drainage issues. We'd like to be able to identify for the voters that these things are all related, and we're working across the silos of government to say this is a Connect Anchorage project, so that they know what they're voting for. They see the connection. I don't know if you guys have ever read bond language. I know you have. It's really hard to read. So the other thing that we'd like to be able to do is help kind of decode the more complicated aspects of the government words and how they can help connect in the connect frame. So like ATAPs, things like that. It's complicated, you know, it's like a lot line, maybe not quite a grid coordinate, but sometimes it feels like they're giving you grid coordinates, right? So we'd like to be involved in those conversations, working especially with your community councils. I'll go a little quicker. We have all kinds of exciting things doing Indigenous placemaking events, and we are going to connect 5 new schools to the trails. And then we have a big vision. Our 2040 vision is kind of massive, right? We want to connect to the Mat-Su on the trail system. There's a 7-mile gap between the end of the trail at Peters Creek and the beginning of the Old Glen. And then we have Seward. We have big goals. We want to connect. There's a Mat-Su Parks Foundation. We want to work with them. We want to build up this connection so that we can connect this trail all around. We have big goals addressing the issues of Lake Otis and Tuna, for example, the gap in the trail system there. It's dangerous. It's really expensive. It's a long-term problem that we want to work collaboratively with all of the departments of city government to help address, find grants for. We want to be that resource. We have all kinds of examples of the way that the Parks Foundation has been able to kind of leverage the way we work. We'll start with something like a challenge grant, which is where neighbors come to us and ask for a small grant to do something. Maybe it's a bench, maybe it's a little trail. Bicentennial Park is probably one of the best examples. It started off as a challenge grant, then it became a youth employment in parks, the Northeast Connector, right? Northeast Connector was started off as a challenge grant. It became the Youth Employment in Parks project where our youth worked on all summer long, and then it became a federally funded project. So it's the graduation of our projects up through the scale that brings in those big federal dollars. Meg, did you want to ask a question?
Sure, I'll put you on the queue.
Okay. So we don't necessarily have a giant ask. We wanted to let you know what we're up to. If you look at the bottom,
Ways to help.
Ways to help. Yeah, we have a draft resolution, and I think we have it. We're not necessarily putting it forward for today. We'd like to talk to you about this vision for Connect Anchorage, work with your neighbors, work with your community councils, and we want to be able to apply for federal motorized transportation funds, and sometimes they need this vision to be part and parcel of the wishes of local government. We will be continuing to hope you'll continue to support our grants and our funding proposals for Connect Anchorage. We want to work with you to craft this kind of like linkage through the bond language, and for you to think about connection as a tool to market bonds. We want your support if we find a way to work with the health and planning departments. I guess the only ask we have is that we think that it is our experience that you can hang a banner on a school that says this school is on the bond. You can't hang a banner on a park or a bridge. We'd like to fix that. We think if we're going to fix a park or a bridge, the neighbors who live around it and the neighbors would want to know it's on the bond. If we can talk about it at schools, why can't we talk about a park? I think we think it's a simple statute change, and we'd like to explore doing that so we can be better advocates with the neighbors. I think a lot of you know that the Anchorage Park Foundation literally cuts turf, produces lists, and gets neighbors to go door to door to drop a lit on doors around parks when they're on the bonds, so that they know they can turn out and improve their own community. It would also be just a lot easier if there was a sign on the park saying this park's on the bond. It would be super simple. And of course, we welcome your ideas. We have kind of a big idea in our head, and we hope that there's an opportunity to work with you collaboratively over the years and with more departments of government to benefit from what we think has been this amazing ability to bring $80 million into the municipality through private and other dollars to make our community better. And I'm going to turn over to Beth or Josh to see if I missed anything.
I think you handled it well. There's lots of stories that can be told that identify how this works well, but I would be respectful to your time and allow you to ask questions about those stories if you're interested.
Okay, great. I do have some questions. So I'll start with Ms. Alatal.
Thank you. I'm really happy to see the Lake Otis crossing is there. My predecessor
will say it's in the Campbell Park Capital Improvement Plan every year. I used to live 2 houses away from that crossing, and we would not play in the front yard always because we were so afraid families were going to get hit crossing Lake Otis, just dashing across. But I was wondering if, since you seem to know that you were able to connect 5 new schools to trails and there are 40 currently, do you have a list?
Yes.
Could you share that with me?
Yes.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I was going to have to do that work myself, so that's awesome.
And Meg, I don't know if you've met Diana Rhodes yet, but I don't think every time I walk into the building she talks about Lake Otis and Tudor. I think she's single-mindedly focused on Lake Otis and Tudor. She's going to make it happen.
Meg, can I add to that? It is going to take creative fund bundling. That doesn't appear to be one piece of money that's going to get it done. And so we might have to pull people together and convene them and figure out a plan to go forward.
Yes, and I would just add that I would definitely like to explore even just some creative placemaking ideas that would be maybe lighter, quicker, cheaper, just to make more awareness of that crossing. That may not be permanent solutions, but that can get us to awareness and steps toward that.
Great. We have lots of opportunities for that, especially through challenge grants and things like that through the English Park Foundation.
So I put myself in the queue. A few quick things for me. So first, and maybe this is a question for Chris Schutte. So what in code allows these banners to be put up next to schools, which I love seeing those next to schools, but not in parks?
Through the chair, I don't think there's anything that specifically allows them, as much as there's nothing in code that specifically prohibits them. So this idea is, I think, a wonderful idea.
Okay. Then second, and this is just sort of an informational item, so the assembly, when we met with the Matsu Bureau recently, we did talk about making a joint transportation working group. And so that's when we talked about that, it wasn't really trails that we were talking about, but it was more roads, specifically when it comes to the MPO. But Chris was one of the folks that was nominated to be in that group.
The answer to never missing a meeting.
Crystal too.
Yes,
Never
and
miss a
Crystal.
meeting.
Yeah. And so yeah, these are natural discussions that are already happening. So I think having these other discussions compound on top of them, I think would be great. And then lastly, this has sort of been a natural conversation that's been welling up over the years, and I thought about it when I see this Connect Fairview, Connect Spenard. Have you guys been engaged in conversations around daylighting Fish Creek?
That's on our 2040 vision. And
I see it now.
I think what's exciting about that, there's some really involved neighbors at Fish Creek. We're totally jazzed about it. And we have been working with the neighbors of Spenard very closely. We opened 2 playgrounds a few years ago and did a groundbreaking for the connecting trail, and it turned out we ended up kind of initiating the Fish Creek Festival, and the neighbors keep doing it, and this year we're trick-or-treating on the Fish Creek Trail. So we feel like that's an example of a neighborhood where we're really building community. But every neighborhood doesn't have a J-Stange. And so we want to help you guys. We can help find your J-Stages. We don't need to take the place of a neighborhood. We want to amplify their voices. And we think the system is difficult for neighbors to navigate.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to keep going down the queue. Mr. Weddleton.
Thanks. Mostly just a couple ideas. One is this moose design. So Boy Scouts need to do for their bicycle merit badge 25 mile or 50 miles. So I had something pretty much like this on the perimeter, not Winchester Creek, that got us to 50 miles. We had to add some little stuff, but if you did a map and said this is 50 miles, this is 25 on this thing, and gave that to the Boy Scouts and make a whole outside and plot it out, measure it.
Oh, it's moose badge. That's a yes. That is a yes.
Boy Scouts have their badges. I stray from that on your uniform, but
And for the record, the Boy Scouts now have girls' units.
and girls too.
So, yeah.
Girls
Yeah.
can bike.
Yeah.
Girls can camp.
Girls can create their own badges, and I know how to get that done at the Girl Scouts.
You know how to get a moose badge done, it
Yes.
sounds like.
So, and then if I could go You're probably aware, actually, but you know, the turning an arm trail to the Bird to Gird Gap, and there's a road project that'll shorten that, but we still have a mile and a half or so. And I know Chris Back, and he's been really pushing DOT. Anything you can do, because there's a road project there. You know, it'd just be a darn shame to miss that opportunity.
Yeah, so the Trails Initiative is a group of people that have been getting together now for, I don't know, 6 years with the Live, Work, Play movement that we started with Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. That's on our connectivity list, and that's another one. I think we wrote a letter about half a year ago, but you know, it's going to take coordination, different kinds of advocacy, and seeking what kind of funds can we seek out to apply to the different conundrums that we're looking at.
Anyway, that's the goal. We're going to lose an opportunity. And then you just work with neighborhoods to identify top 3 connectivity plans. You know, the community councils have their CIP programs as in the fall, so you want to coordinate with that.
Well, yeah, the idea is to work with the community councils, but they're not all filling them out. And also, they're not easy to fill out. And also, we're hoping to just find out from them, it may be a trail, but it also might be a sidewalk. I would like to really be able to talk in connectivity language and easy, short lists, and be able to help them do the research on what's doable for their top priorities. Because right now it feels really difficult to determine what their top 3 priorities are.
Those lists are used, though. You know, I know that within the city we do it on AMAPs when we do the TIP and the MTP and all that. We're looking. You get extra points, community council, CIP list, and so on. So it is important that they get that.
Where's Fred?
He's gone.
Acronym police. We on him.
Well, we use them for parks and have for many years because we were so successful with working with the state legislature. But when it comes to looking at the transportation lists, they're difficult to read.
And I also want to say that a connectivity priority may not be the same as a capital priority. The connectivity priority, when they think about it, they're like, oh, there's this social path that exists between the school and this park, and it's not maintained, and we don't know who owns the land. That's not a capital project priority. That's a connectivity priority for the community. That could be a youth employment and parks project, right? We're not necessarily talking about rising to the level of the top of their capital investment. We're talking about maybe it's as simple as connecting on Government Hill. We built the youth employment and parks, but that whole trail on Government Hill earlier this year. Was that a #1 priority on the CI? I doubt it, right? But it was something the neighbors are really going to use. So it's getting, being respectful of that process, absolutely. But also, I think we can do things that are like maybe slightly less of the scale that make neighbors really happy, you know, because youth employment and parks can just do amazing things. And so can challenge grants for that matter, because sometimes maybe it's even a challenge grant that we're able to partially or completely fund, empower a neighbor to do it. And all of these things are about connection. I mean, in our dream world, in the future, when you guys authorize a subdivision, no subdivision is authorized that doesn't connect to the nearby park or trail. Like, we want that to be top of mind for everybody in town because we think it's why people live here. Access to the outdoors and to access the beautiful assets that we have. And so that top of mind thinking about connectivity is how we can really connect Anchorage and make it a top priority for everybody involved.
If I could, I think the Anchorage Park Foundation currently and has a lot of capacity to fill a void that we have right now. So we have all these processes at the municipality. We have this non-motorized transportation plan that's happening. We have all these master plans that identify what we're doing in parks as relates to connections, trails, things of that nature. But the way that the Park Foundation engages community, and one good example is their Challenge Grant program. You'll find these missing connections because they're just reaching out to the public about what their idea is. And getting to an example that I'd like to speak to was in close proximity to Rabbit Creek Elementary, There was a dad that walks his kids to school. His name's Dan. He saw an opportunity through park property where they could make a safer connection to the school. So he applied for a challenge grant. He got $40,000. That's then going to turn in this coming year into a youth employment and parks project where municipal employees are going to build this trail. These kind of things don't come up through the CIP process. They don't come up in the non-motorized plan. So this is a void that the Park Foundation fills. And I think when they start getting this momentum, it'll be a catalyst for these smaller projects to happen.
Thank you. Mr. Perez-Ferdinand.
Thank you. So I have three things. One, love the accessible playgrounds. Love that, and just really appreciate that work. It creates really quality spaces for people to be. Love the connectivity idea. I'm thinking about it a lot. The one thing that's really standing out to me, and I've been thinking a lot about, is bathrooms, right? And the lack of bathrooms in this city, and it's just come up so often over the last few months. And I just want to hear your thoughts about that, about where that fits into your vision. You know, these accessible parks where families go or people go. Where do they go to the bathroom, right? And all the connectivity, and you can drive through the city or ride your bike through the city, and there's nowhere to go to the bathroom. And so, how does that fit into your plans? And how can we work with you to create a better network of bathrooms in this city? Connect bathrooms.
So we've been a lot more successful over the last 15 years building community energy for the capital projects. And in my time in this city, the bathrooms have been maintenance expenses, or they come out of Josh's budget for the porta potty part of his budget.
Yeah, but
and
I
so
don't
that's
want porta
operations.
potties. I want porta potties. I would like to see this city have bathrooms, like real park bathrooms.
Through the chair, it's a challenge. We have existing facilities now that could be opened up, and they exist in a handful of our community use parks. And as things changed in Anchorage, they became a burden from a financial perspective, from a safety perspective, and when I travel, this is something that's on my mind. As I go to other communities where I see these maintained, managed bathrooms that are in parks, and when I see them, I think the reason that they're successful is, well, I know the reason they're successful is they have a larger tax base. They actually have enforcement in these areas where there's problems, but these problems are negated by all the positive activity there, and then there's enforcement to deal with that safety issue associated with that bathroom. In addition to that, there's funding that is dedicated for the management and the locking and the closure and the cleaning of these bathrooms. And in our current environment, it's not there. And I think it would be great if we get there, because the porta potties, they're a visual burden on our beautiful landscape. They cost, I can tell you how much it costs, about $300 grand a year. Yeah. And I think we can do a better job, but really the barrier right now is funding. So if we could identify what that gap is and how we get there, but again, you have to remember that that's going to be a burden every year that will far surpass our $300,000 budget for porta potties.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing it up here,
Yeah.
because you have big, bold, exciting ideas. You have access to lots of different partnerships, and I truly believe that this is a really serious challenge for us as a city, not only for our homeless population or for just the people who bike and walk throughout our city, but for families who want to use the city and want to travel on bikes and want to. I mean, we have to take my kids into the woods to go to the bathroom when we're out biking around the city. So it's just not good. And so to the degree that we could think about a long-term vision for that and partner together on these kinds of things, I think it'd be great. So.
Another point here. We thought we came up with a solution once, and we tried to implement that, and that was taking observations of what state parks does, what our national parks do, and those are those sweet-smelling toilets, the SSTs. And we thought that would be a great idea.
That's not really what it stands for.
It is. And So we looked to put one into Russian Jack when we were redeveloping that. We're like, oh, this will be a great place to test this. We'll see how it works. They're open. It doesn't have working plumbing, but it is something that can work. And there's actually a barrier in code that prevents us to do that as it relates to being within the AWU service area. Mm-hmm. So there's something for this group to look at and see if there's some potential for change.
I'll just add that we were the final funder for the softball association's state-of-the-art potties at Chuck Albrecht Fields, and I think they spent more than $250,000. It's a cinder block building, and they lock them so they're not accessible when the games are not on. But softball players can get in there and change before their games. So, but they're locked. They're not really public.
Thank you. Mr. Constant?
Yeah, thanks. You know, the ones that they use in certain parts of Portland, they've designed amazingly where basically there's no privacy except certain angles. They're wide open.
Very European.
Yeah, the problem is they're $500,000 each. And they're very smart, but it's a problem. Now, I just have an anecdote for you. This is from yesterday. I was meeting with Dick Mountsegger, who's in charge of the kind of coalition's funding arm for the homeless initiatives, homeless solution initiatives, and I literally said, I heard from someone who did the Moose a couple weeks ago. What I meant was this route. And so it's starting to percolate into the community. People are understanding what you mean. And there's some marketing that could be done around that because it is a unifying element. And there probably should be some kind of races and activities that bind the whole thing into one that would be pretty celebratory of this huge asset that we have. Just call it the Moose.
Yes. You got Beth Norman's brain for a few minutes there.
Yeah, well, literally, I'm using it to describe conflicts and solutions. This homeless issue. Anyway, so that happened yesterday.
How about a Moose Marathon to raise money for the Park Foundation?
Yes.
Here we go. A Moose.
I think
it's a super marathon.
Write that down.
And one of the things, like from a parks perspective, when they got this Moose idea, what we really what we get excited about this is we see it as a catalyst for investment in this, because I don't know if I'd actually jump on putting a race on this, but you're going to have to do a lot of traffic control. Because what you're going to see when you do this ride is there's a lot of areas where you get confused, you get lost, and it's not safe. So what this tells us is we have this great possibility, but we need to work on it.
Yeah.
Then we should have races, but we can still have them, but it has to have some control.
I think there's a race that goes basically from here to someplace, Eagle, Alaska, that goes to the middle of nowhere, and people practically die on the way.
Yeah, that's true.
And so people can make it. You just have to make sure the activities are graded toward whoever's going to participate.
Yeah.
But let me finish up by saying signage and wayfinding are a really big part of our mission at the Anchorage Park Foundation. Signage and wayfinding are a huge problem on our trail system. We've been slowly installing signage markers. I think you've seen them. Wayfinding, we have maps, we have an app, we have lots of things. But it's a constant issue, and right now we're working on primarily the trail system itself. But then you have the whole aspect of like when you leave Kincaid and you're trying to connect up and you're trying to hit Rabbit Creek, or you want to do some other aspect of it, you're going to be riding on the road. And then what is the signage that we need to work so that somebody can find their way back to the trail system? There are lots of breaks through neighborhoods. And so there's wayfinding and then there's signage. I think in Government Hill we've installed some signage to direct you towards the Tyson Elementary access point, right, Beth? Mountain View, sorry, what did I say?
Government Hill.
Oh, yeah. Because, you would never know where that access point is if you didn't know where the access point is. It's behind the parking lot, like between two little pylons. The neighbors know, and I live on that side of town, so I know. But if you're from but when I get into South Anchorage, I just don't even know. I get, it makes me a little nervous. And so we're interested in this whole aspect too, signage and wayfinding. It's really important. We think there's a lot of opportunity for tourism and economic development related to our trails, and finding the access to the trail system from downtown seems like a no-brainer. Also super hard. Can't figure it out. Got to ask a local, and they've been to the backside of Elderberry Park, and they possibly figure it out. So we just have access issues and signage issues, and we're working on it.
Thank you. Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Do I need to phone that?
You're good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am a bit of a cyclist, so I've done this trail and many trails in Anchorage, and I completely agree with you. Signage is a big challenge. I know where to go, but I can see how no one would know where to go, and it's easy to get lost. So, but I just want to say thank you for all of this. It's so cool, and you know, I just love it, and I love what you guys are doing. So, however we can help. I am no longer at GLT because I couldn't work. We all work 60 hours a week or something, so I have multiple jobs. So I am now looking for an outlet to help do amazing projects like this. So just keep that in mind. And don't try to steal Jay. If anybody's considering it, it's not an option. That's kind of our secret. It's been art, so don't spread that too much. But for real,
Midtown shares it,
yeah. I just skimming this looks doable to me, but I haven't read it in detail. So I guess the message is just let us know specifically how we can help. And I'd be interested in learning about that code language and what's the specific language. I think that would be an easy change if there's no reason to keep it.
When will you guys decide what is on the bond?
By January.
Usually the second meeting in January.
So just a request that I know that they come to you in their order. It would be helpful for us if we were able to understand and get with the translators of the road bonds and the drainage bonds to see where they connect to the park and our other activities where we have connections that we're working on. Because we would really like to be able to market these things. Like I think about the bonds as like appearing in a line, and then how do we do the communication with the public? So there's like a little icon that says this is part of the Connect Anchorage plan. They're all connected. All these, it's good government, it's responsible government, and it shows people how these systems work together. So I would appreciate when you get that far along, when we start looking at the language, to really be thoughtful about. It might even be as simple as how it's ordered on the bond.
Well, and you guys probably should talk with the mayor's office because they initially put that package together. So Bill Halsey particularly. I don't know, Chris has something else to add to that, but
just through the chair, I think what the community would benefit from, and what I hear the Park Foundation saying, is translation services. I think that's bond language, which has to be drafted by and signed off on by bond counsel, John Weddleton's best friends.
Doesn't trust him.
Never trust somebody to translate that into every person's speak, and that's exactly what they do.
We do that for the Parks Department, and I just type while Josh talks, and we get a great list together. But it's harder on the other projects that I don't know the origin story of, and I don't live in that neighborhood. I can't see. I look at someone else's long list, and I think, somebody tell me what's on this list.
But you still vote for
Yeah, yes, I do.
if she votes no, she's not going to admit it here. She'd be ousted.
Can I ask, the resolution, we think the resolution will be handy for us in a few different ways. If you want to have a couple people do a deeper dive, this is our first take. But we would like to take it to Washington, D.C. We'd like to be able to use it to advocate with all different kinds of funding sources.
When do you go?
February we go.
Oh.
Yeah, we have plenty of time.
Easy.
Yeah. So we'll definitely review it, and then we'll get back to you on timing. Mr. Dunbar, I think you're the last one in the queue.
I'm good.
You're good?
Email it to Felix.
Thank you very much, you guys. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's really nice to end on this note.
Thank
Yay!
you.
I'm glad it was here and on a Tuesday night.